Welcome, everyone. I'll now call the regular council meeting of Tuesday, December 7th to order. Is there anyone interested in public input? The meeting is open to statements from no more than 5 members of the public of no more than 2 minutes in length each. Okay, thank you. We'll move to item 3.1. Any late additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there is a revised staff recommendation for item 11.4, and that has been supplied to all of council.
Okay. I need someone to move that the December 7th regular council meeting agenda be adopted as amended with the late addition. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? None? Call the question. All those in favor? Carries. No delegations. We'll move to item 6, adoption of council minutes. Need someone to move that the June 29, 2021 special council meeting minutes be adopted as presented. And number 2, that the November 2nd, 2021 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented. Who moves? Councillor Hopeful, second Councillor Howe. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried, thank you. We'll move to rise and report, item 8.1. For purposes of record, I'm going to read it out. This council resolution was made in closed session, is now a matter of public record. That staff be directed to acquire a market value appraisal from an accredited appraiser, Canadian Institute, AACI, professional for the property located at 558 Main Street, Lillooet, BC, illegally described as Lot A Plan, KAP 25459, Land District 27, Lillooet Town Site, PID 005-466-482. And that staff be authorized to offer the seller the current asking price of $165,000 if the appraised value is greater than the asking price, or if the appraised value is lower than the current asking price, to make an initial offer to the seller equal to the appraised value, and if necessary, negotiate up to the current asking price of $165,000. And further, that this purchase be funded from the district's land sale reserve fund. Now move to item 9. Any member of council wish to have correspondence removed from 9.1? I think the Gold Country Community Society support request, do we want to put a request form for that? I'll ask to have it removed then. Okay, I need someone to move that the correspondence included in the staff report dated November 26th be received for information except for item 2. Councillor Howe, second Councillor Hockle. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Now that goes to 8. Okay. Item 11.1, council meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Every year, council must adopt a schedule of regular council meetings that are to be published and made available to any member of the public at any time. Regular council meetings must be scheduled for the forthcoming year to note the dates, time, and commencement and location as established by resolution. The procedure bylaw is not prescriptive as to the date and time of the meeting, but does require that meetings be held in either the district office or the rec center unless council resolves to hold the meetings elsewhere. At the November 1st Committee of the Whole meeting, the committee discussed the proposed schedule and have forwarded the schedule to council consideration. The proposal has meetings at 5 p.m. on the first Tuesday of each month with the following exceptions. January 4th is moved to January 18th in order to meet statutory requirements for public hearing notification if any are scheduled for that date. February 2nd is moved to February 8th in order to give sufficient time between the January 18th and February meetings. July 2nd is moved to July 12th to avoid the Canada Day long weekend. August 2nd is moved to August 9th to avoid the BC Day long weekend. And the November meeting must be held on Monday, November 7th, 2022, in accordance with the requirements of the procedure bylaw to hold an inaugural council meeting on the first Monday in November after general election. The September meeting will remain on the first Tuesday, September 6th, in spite of the Labor Day long weekend, as the following week would interfere with the UBCM conference. Staff recommends that the 2022 schedule of council meetings in your agenda package be adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any questions, clarification? Councillor Hopple?
Through the mayor, February 8th, Councillor Weed, Councillor Leach and I will be at the LGLA, we'll be leaving. So February 8th.
Should we try for February 15th, council?
Sure. Fine.
February 15th.
Any other questions, clarification by council? No. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. So, need someone to move that the 2022 schedule of council meeting attached to the staff report dated November 8th, reflecting a single regular council meeting a month with commencement time of 5 p.m. and with the change of February 8th to the 15th be adopted. Councillor Hopple, second Councillor Howe. Any further questions or comments? Call the question? Carried, thank you. 11.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Procedure Bylaw number 450/2017 requires the council annually designate councillors to serve on a rotating basis as the member responsible for acting in place of the mayor. The proposal is as follows. Councillor Hopple from January 1st to March 15th. Councillor Howe from March 16th to May 31st. Councillor Leach from June 1st to August 15th. And Councillor Weed from August 16th to October 15th. As the general election is on October 15th, if after that date and before the inaugural meeting on November 7th, there's a need for an acting mayor, the mayor may designate one at that time. Staff recommends that the 2022 agenda of acting mayor designations be adopted.
Thank you. Comments, Councillor Hopple?
Oh, no comment.
I was just voting on it, sorry. Jump ahead.
You're getting ahead of me. Good for you. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Item 11.3.
Thank you. As we did last month with the contracted approving officer, we now find ourselves needing to apply our MIABC coverage to Don Darling, who will be returning to the district to act as interim capital project administrator while we continue to search for a new director of public works and utilities. The addition of Don Darling as an associate member will cost the district up to $2,000, which would be included in the 2022 budget. The cost for the remainder for 2021 will be funded from the district's accumulated surplus for the year. In addition, the district's deductible of $5,000 would apply to any claims brought against the associate member. Staff recommend that Don Darling be added to the district's liability insurance with MIABC as an associate member, with the insurance fees to be paid by the district. Thank you.
Any queries, clarification, council? Okay, someone moved that Don Darling, interim project. You have a question?
No, I'm moving.
Well, then read it out, Councillor Al, thank you.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Good for you.
You didn't need Counselor Hopple to read it.
11.3. So, let's spread it around.
Right, all right.
11.3.
Yes, I'm getting there. There it is. I'm following along on my
Good for
notes. Staff recommendation that Don Darling, I move that Don Darling, interim capital project administrator, be added to an associate member, as an associate member to the District of Lillooet's liability insurance policy with the Municipal Insurance Association of British Columbia, MIABC, term of his consulting agreement, being November 19th, 2021 to December 31st, 2022, or until such time as the agreement is terminated.
Thank you, Counselor Howell, who second? Counselor Lee? Any comments, questions, input? Fine, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried, and thank you. Thank you, Counselor Howell. Item 11.4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In September of this year, the district posted a tender for roadwork rehabilitation of a local road, being Cayush Lane, comprising approximately 2,100 square meters of asphalt milling and full road structural removal, reconstruction, and restoration. In addition, there's approximately 10 localized areas throughout the district requiring hard surface improvements, comprising of saw cutting, removal, and disposal of asphalt, and asphalt restoration to these sites. The additional sites of asphalt remediation are shown starting on page 97 of the agenda package. Based on the 2016 paving management plan, it was determined that Cayush Lane was the appropriate next project. The tender was updated to include the excavation of the subbase, which comprises an integral part of the road structure. This is likely what led to the received quotes exceeding the original budgeted amount. However, not replacing the subbase structure will invariably reduce the overall lifespan of the road. There was previous work done in the Garden Street area where the subbase was not excavated, and reconstruction that led to compaction and settling occurred at different rates along the roadway. Naturally, asphalt does not bend, so this led to premature cracks and holes in the surface. This is an example of do it right or do it twice. While this project was intended for 2021, there were many factors that delayed the pavement management plan this year, including wildfire, which delayed consultants, staff, and contractor availability. This was not unique to this project or industry. As the district purchasing policy states that the award of any tender with a value exceeding $250,000 is to be considered by council, staff are recommending that the 2021, now 2022 paving program be awarded to Dawson Construction Limited, and that the additional funds be released from the district road reserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Counselor Hoppel?
So, you said through the mayor, thank you, in September, this had come up?
In September, a tender was posted for the budgeted amounts,
Oh, okay.
Which is already included in the budget.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's-
sometimes I find, and for those residents that don't know this process, and I used to be one of them, and when something comes to staff, a grant guided to do the road study or whatever, this one was obviously for the 10 worst roads in Lillooet, and then the document comes back to council, we accept their findings in the report, and those reports guide us as a community. However, sometimes I find that those same reports also become operations, and then they don't come back to council unless, for example, those projects need more money. So I drove Cayush Lane, and I actually used to live there. I lived there for nearly 10 years right on Cayush Lane, and I find that people were obviously speeding down there. It's right against the school, Cayush School. All the buses go down there, all the little kids walk down there, and I was often one of those parents that are just like, had the sign out saying, slow down, and so when I drove it the other day, there's potholes, the road is crap, but you know what? I drove slow because the road is crap, and it's like a speed bump, you don't know what you're gonna hit, but I kinda like that. And to spend over $500,000 on this road, when I think that, is it in our asset management plan? Have we done our asset management plan? And we have roads that, we want to do, like Russell Street, that are main roads, is just a lane. I, unfortunately, am not gonna support this initiative tonight. So I just kinda wanted to see what you guys felt about that, because I know, I don't wanna say this, but when I get on new pavement, I don't know, my speed picks up, right? And I think that paving this and making this a really nice nice road, even if it's got, or a lane, still a lane, not a road, even if it's got the speed bumps on it, I worry that being right against the fence that borders Cayush School is not really a good thing that we should be looking at spending over $500,000 on. So,
If-
just my opinion.
Sorry, if I may, just for clarity, through the mayor, it's, 354,382,
Right.
total, not five hundred
And
thousand.
the extra 178,
So it's 200,000 that we already have in budget,
okay,
plus 150 for the new resolution,
okay.
so the total is
So the total is
300.
378, okay, and still,
Yeah.
I still feel
Just for
that
clarity.
I would rather put that to a main road as opposed to Cayush Lane.
I
Thank
think
you.
Counselor Howell was next.
Okay, so I just wanna confirm with Counselor Hupfeld, so there's two concerns around this road. One being that if it's paved, we're gonna get a lot of speeders through that area.
My opinion, only my opinion.
Okay, fair enough, as a parent, that's concerning to me as well. Secondly, the concern is the location, that perhaps that money can go to a different road, is that correct?
Any road, yeah,
Okay.
I just think it's a lane. I know the buses go down there, the buses have always gone down there, the cars go down there to drop off their kids. The kids walk down there to go to Cayush, like, I don't know, I just feel
Well,
that, Sorry.
Through me, sorry.
Oh, sorry, so through the mayor, there's a few concerns, so being a parent that walks my child through that area during times of before and after school and those buses are coming whipping around, those potholes are actually really dangerous because they can pull that bus right towards a child unexpectedly. So I think that there's a lot of merit to cleaning that road up and a lot of reasons why we wanna do that. I do agree that the traffic goes through that area quite quickly, and perhaps that's something that should be addressed separately, and talked about. So I would like to see that conversation brought forward. But I do agree, I do believe that road needs to be paved, it's dangerous, it's a hazard, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Weeb?
Through the mayor, I am in agreement with Counselor Hopful. I understand where Counselor Howe is coming from with the potholes, but I would kind of like to, I can't even remember what the 10 worst roads were on the list from 2021, to be quite honest. And in my mind, this is an alley, and is there a reason that we could not come back with cost to gravel it, which would cover the pothole issue and would also slow the traffic down that goes through there? And I know there's a lot of vehicles parked there too, like it's an alley, they park behind their house, fair enough. But, yeah, as far as the paving part, I think it could be reasonably done with gravel.
Counselor Leach?
So to clarify the pothole situation, these are not potholes. There's a ravine. There is a ravine that the water has come down the lane and has it is like that deep. I've personally gone and measured it. I try to walk my kids down that side of the road and I cannot because it is so bad that we have to walk in the middle of the road. And I, as a parent, have to try and figure out where the vehicles are coming from and how fast they are going. I do agree people go way too fast down that road, and it is a school zone, so technically there should be enforcement, and that is something that we can look at in other jurisdictions of the district. I mean, RCP should be monitoring that as well as 6th Avenue. They've done a better job of monitoring 6th Avenue, but not necessarily the lane. Second of all, Cayush Elementary has, I can, maybe staff can confirm that has been given notice to keep their fire lane, open. So there has been repeated notices going out to parents to not park in the roundabout, and therefore more parents are actually parking on 6th Avenue, which is just as dangerous, and Hangman's Lane. they would park closer to the school, and children would not be crossing the road if Cayush Lane was actually up to snuff. What I'm not gonna lie, I'm kinda surprised that we're actually debating whether or not it needs to be done. I would recommend, or I would hope that instead of driving it next time, you'd walk it and you'd actually see how bad it really is. It is the worst road in this community. It is worse than Russell, especially the amount of traffic that it gets on, despite it only being school traffic. It is terrible. And I have watched buses accidentally hit the ravine. I'm not even gonna call it a pothole, the ravines in the cracks in the road, and watch the buses flop. It is embarrassing.
Okay.
So I am absolutely 100% in support of getting this done. I understand there's been Russell Lane that we continually talk about, and I think every year we need to be doing a better job at getting these roads fixed, but school safety, I think, needs to be our #1 priority, and then on the, how heavy the traffic is in other areas.
Okay.
Thank you.
From my perspective, and obviously, nobody's gonna discount or discourage school safety, but I'm a strong believer in our asset management plan. In the last 3 years, people coming to me from all over the community, obviously, because I live on Airport Road, they're challenging me, when the heck are you gonna pave Airport Road? And my reply to them and to others in other areas, we are developing an asset management program. And on that, you will see all our priorities from 1 through whatever, in terms of what's gonna be paved, the year that it's gonna be paved in. I just sort of feel without that asset management completed, then, at least from my perspective, I told people that, something that we aren't gonna do, and I assumed that we would, so I have a concern with regard to that. Potholes, and as I told them on Airport Road, we'll fix them until we schedule it to be repaired, to be paved. And as I say, precluding, certainly don't wanna see anything unsafe, especially in and around the school. I know it was 2016 when those, roads were considered, but we've got an asset management plan that is a proper approach to, fixing infrastructure within our community. I like to see that completed, and the whole community can see what's on the list and when it's gonna come. Do we have an asset management update?
Not an update, I do believe that they're still in phase 1 of the plan. I believe it's supposed to wrap up around March 2022, but with the loss of the Director of Public Works, we might need to extend that slightly.
Yeah. So again, before I pass over to you guys, I feel that we should postpone this, maintain the roads the best we can, and obviously making sure it's safe, but I'd like to see major expenditures like this on pavement to come after our asset management plan. Council Leach, I think, was next.
So, just putting what you're saying into perspective, okay, so it wraps up in the spring, then it has to go back out to tender, and then we have to find a contractor. So we're at least 2 years away from potentially fixing any street, is what I'm gathering, because you don't wanna do any paving until we have that plan. So this road is so far gone, or lane, whatever you wanna call it, is so far gone. I'm concerned that we don't do it. We wait 2 years before we have the plan, before we start any paving, and then this one, based on the asset management, gets bumped down the road, because now we're saying we want major roads versus lanes to be done, and we're looking at where they are in town versus, safety. So then this one gets bumped down, so maybe we're looking at 5, 6, 7 years. Like, I don't believe that this road has, like, it is so past prime. Like, it is not, those potholes are not fixable. Water has come down from,
Look, sir, let me interfere. We're deep into the technical part of it, you might be so, but please don't presume that the asset management plan is gonna set aside safety when it comes to prioritizing the roads. That isn't certainly what I would expect of it.
well, I'm just trying to get a feel of
Right.
what the timeline for this one is. Because I really do feel like this is a priority. when it comes to paving, and I don't think that staff would have brought forward this the way it's presented if they also did not see this as a priority. You know, when Mr. Carver was here, he went out and he looked at all of the spots that were on that paving report, the 2016 paving report. And from that report, he's brought this forward. The potholes that are on part 2 of this document are ones that we can temporarily fix until we get the asset management plan. So I think that that's separate than what this Cayush Lane is.
It's still a substantial amount of money
Absolutely.
that's not in the budget, you know.
Absolutely. I totally understand.
Okay, I hear you.
We do have a strong voice of the public that is saying we want our roads fixed and done.
Right, I agree,
And-
I agree.
And
And they're all localized in the areas where those people live too, so we gotta keep that in mind. I agree with you.
for sure, and just to like bring some clarity to it too, is that, you know, the folks that are if you look at the demographic that have purchased larger family homes that pay higher taxes in the community, they are all people with younger families. They're paying $400,000, $500,000 for homes right now to put their kids in schools, and then they go to the school and they look at this road. I mean, it's a huge turnoff, to be quite honest. Had I not lived here for years, and that was what I was presented with to take my kids to elementary school, like, it would be a strong argument to maybe not move here, in my opinion. So I think there's multiple facets that we need to consider besides just the budget on this one.
Okay. Counselor Howell, you were next.
There's a lot of negative points, some of them crossed over. Okay, through the mayor, so another consideration is that we have talked many times in the past about providing a service, to the public that is not always so underground, but has some visual appeal to it so that people feel like, things are getting done. So yes, I'd like to, it seems strategic to wait, however, it is also strategic or wise to maybe move ahead on this one. Also, I second Councillor Leach's comment regarding Mr. Card's efforts already put forward, and the research that he and his team have done in providing these 10 streets. I trust that. We've known that this was coming up for some time now, and so I thought we were already sort of bracing ourselves, so to speak, for this movement forward. So I'm not really clear on why we would now wait, especially with the road, when safety is on our strategic plan. It's such a huge key component to what we want for Lillooet. So just some
Point
further
taken.
considerations.
Okay. Counselor Hopple?
So through the mayor, I believe that safety really is in the eyes of the beholder, and like I said, I lived there for a long time, so for me, safety is making sure that the traffic is slow. And when I did drive through there, and I did drive, I drove slow. So, I mean, maybe I should walk through it, and maybe we should all walk through, so maybe we just need to postpone this. I mean, there's snow on there and everything right now, I don't know. But I just don't feel comfortable in spending this money on a lane that I believe is safer falling apart than it is paved. I know that might not make any sense, but I mean, if Public Works is filling those potholes, and most of them are potholes, they're not cracks, right? Like from, I mean, maybe at the front part of it, you know, as it goes around that corner, they are, but down below, I don't know that they're not, but irregardless, I don't know.
Okay. And then
I
Counselor
feel
Lee?
that they are, it's safer than it is paving it.
Counselor B?
Through the mayor, I would like to defer it and have it come back as to the cost of putting gravel down there, and I would also like to know if there's some way to, if this is a ravine and there's water running and all of these things happening, what's the time span of this lasting? Is this something we need to do every 18 months? Is this something we need to do every 5 years? Is this, I would really like to know that. And, like I say, if you go and you pave it, plus on the other note, if the school buses are using it, I'd kind of like to get the Board of Education involved here with a little bit of, cough up some funds for the roads that yous are using. And I know that's in my imaginary world, that that's ever going to happen, but I would be really curious as to know how long this would last with gravel versus paving and the cost differences.
Okay, just before I move on to the next person, as staff outlines, we got two options. We move the motion, or we refer to, for other options. Councillor Weed has offered another option, and, Councillor Leach, next, is it?
I was just going to hopefully maybe answer the bit about how long would it last the way it is. Part of the reason this costs so much is because not only are they paving it, they're actually having to excavate what is currently there, which is a larger job. So it's one of those things, you leave it long enough and it's gonna be substantially more than what it could have been if we had just maintained it in the first place. Like I said, it's past its prime, absolutely, 100%.
I did read the report, Councillor Leach. I'm just curious as to, like it was said, if you don't do it right the first time, then you're going to end up doing it a second time. I would like to make sure that our second time is the right way, and that this just isn't gonna go down the bank or sink or whatever. That
I
was it.
agree, and before I pass on to Councillor Howe, the fact that we're asking for another $178,000, if it can be done in stages, that's what I'd like to see, was in terms of looking at options. We can do the road and put off the pavement, all those kind of options, I'd like to see us consider before going that road. Councillor Howe.
Through the mayor, I hear what Councillor Weed is saying. If we are to ask staff to consider a gravel road, I would also like to see, some research done around safety of gravel roads and bus use up against a schoolyard. Just sounds like a recipe for disaster, but that's up to staff to figure out. But I am still 100% of the mindset that we should take care of this sooner than later.
So what is the appetite? I think there's some for, some against. Do we put the motion as recommended by staff, or is there an appetite to defer it and come back with more information? Mr. Taylor?
Mr. Mayor, deferring this particular item, as it sits before you isn't really an option. The tender, does have a timeline that we have to respond to the contractors by. There's a lot of call for roadwork contractors in the province right now for obvious reasons. So if we lose them now, we're gonna have to go back out to tender again. Chances are costs are only gonna go up, for this one. And in order to get the feedback that council's looking for, we will have to wait for a new, director of Public Works and Utilities to come aboard, get caught up, and then have that assigned to them.
Given that, guys, I think we'll table the motion. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Councillor Lee.
can I just also add, we've had Russell Street come before us, how many times in the last couple of years? And every time it comes back because it gets deferred, or whatever the decision is made, because we are not making a concrete decision, every time it comes back more because of inflation. So there is a real possibility that this is gonna cost even more next year, or the year after that, or whenever the asset management plan gets done. Like, we need to be able to make smart don't wanna say risky, cause risky scares people, but we need to make smart infrastructure decisions and not be afraid that they're gonna cost us this much. Like, these are investments into the future of the community, they're not just, you know, this is not something that's just to make it look pretty, right? And I know sometimes it's hard to explain that to the public, but I think we need to learn how to do that and also be able to make those decisions
Okay.
and stand by them.
From my perspective, a budget shortfall of that amount, staff has to rethink how they come forward and present it and look at doing it a different or unique way. $178,000 is not anything to sneeze at. So, any more comments before I table the motion? Okay. Need someone to move that the council award the 2021 paving program to Dawson
Mr. Mayor.
Construction Limited?
Just a moment, please, the, resolution number.
Oh, sorry. Revised, sorry, apologies. That council award the paving program to Dawson Construction Limited in the amount of $354,382.57, and that council approved to carry forward the $200,000 budget from 2021 to 22, and further that council pre-approve an additional $154,382.57 to be included in the 2022 budget for this project to be funded through the district's road reserve. Who will so move? Councillor Leach, second Councillor Howe. Any further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Defeated. Okay. We move to item 12.1, bylaws and resolutions.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The proposal before you today is for a 3-story, 6 rental tenure unit development at the site of the Old Jones Market at 1091 Main Street. In the proposal, the first floor of the building will contain approximately 2,147 square foot convenience store and 2 475 square foot commercial rental units. The second and third floors will contain 6 residential units of various sizes, each with their own outdoor amenity area. The building surface offers a variety of colors and textures which contribute to the overall visual experience of moving between spaces. The public-private interface is well defined, with the residential areas being exclusively on the second and third floors, and covered residential parking at the rear of the lot. The entire first level is dedicated to commercial, with a large outdoor public patio space at the front. While the variance request would limit off-street parking to 6 stalls for the residences, 8 on-street parking spaces, one of which will be accessible, would be available to serve the needs of the commercial units as well as visitor parking. The architect has proposed semi-on-site parking, where the sidewalk will jut into the property to make way for the stalls, so they won't protrude into the roadway any further than a parallel parked vehicle. The front face of the building will have an awning built off the front to provide sun and rain protection. The building will cover 80% of the lot, which is the maximum allowed, with the rest of the lot being devoted to parking. Very little landscaping is needed on this site, however, the front will have some landscape screening of the heat pump at the front of the building. The predominant feature of this facade is its pre-1910 design, built with fire-smart materials, utilizing non-combustible siding with some wood trim and heavy timber posts and beams that add historical and rustic character in keeping with the permit area design guidelines. The building features a 3-point traditional triangular style awning, more common pre-1910. The colors proposed provide an attractive mix of color and neutral tones, which will be framed by the timber beams. Again, as with the proposal last month at 622 Main Street, please note that the orange on the drawing is representative of wood, not orange paint. The developer intends to cover the south-facing roof with solar panels to offset the electrical use. There's also a proposal to install infrastructure for 5 electric vehicle stations when only one is required on site. There's also a proposal subject to engineering for an underground rainwater collection system to manage stormwater running from the site. The variance requests have been submitted after consultation with staff and are supportable for the smart development of this lot. The front setback is proposed to be reduced from 6 meters to 4.63 meters. This is just to accommodate the awning projection, with the structure itself being at the requisite 6 meters from the property line. The parking variance request allows maximum lot development for the lot. 6 parking spots, 1 per dwelling unit, is proposed. This is a ratio of 1 to 1, where the bylaw requires 1.25 to 1. This is where we get into the scale of development. The current bylaw does not set parking requirements by number of bedrooms, but rather by number of dwelling units. Where the required number of stalls for residential use on this site is 8, that still means that 4 of the dwelling units will only have a single stall. The intent of the 0.25 is to consider visitor parking, which can be accommodated by the proposed on-street parking on 11th Avenue. In order to have this development with no variance to residential parking requirements, they would have to eliminate 2 rental units and provide 5 parking stalls. This is still basically a ratio of 1 parking stall for the majority of the units. Further, the commercial on-site parking is looking to be reduced from 5 to 0. These type of units here lend themselves to neighborhood use. In other municipalities I've been in, we've had dedicated neighborhood commercial zones for exactly this type of proposal. The convenience store is more likely to be frequented by tenants of the building and the occupants of the surrounding neighborhood, and of course the high school. Depending on their selection, they should be able to provide necessities to the neighborhood, limiting the need to jump in the car and go all the way to the other end of town for a loaf of bread or a can of soup. Having these satellite commercial units within neighborhoods has the effect of reducing reliance on vehicles for every trip out of the house. Similarly, the 2 smaller CRUs are likely more conducive to personal services rather than full retail. These could be real estate offices or a notary or a small beauty salon. Generally, the type of commercial that sees lower traffic or appointment-based attendance. These types of uses are all over town without an abundance of parking, and those areas have not suffered from unacceptable congestion. For example, the vet office, the new optometrist, and the entire building at 909 Main Street, which has an accountant and stylist, among other things. With the recent OCP and housing needs assessment, placing a significant emphasis on the need for additional rental units, staff have taken that policy to mean that variances to facilitate those types of developments are supportable. As a requirement of the development permit, however, staff are suggesting that any loading for the commercial units not take place on Main Street. As this development is reflective of both the requirements of the new official community plan, housing needs assessment, and downtown design guidelines, staff are recommending that DP 21-005 and DDP 21-006 be approved. Mr. Mayor, at this time it's appropriate for the applicant to make a presentation if they wish, and then members with the public to speak if they feel that the development affects their interests.
And then council gets to seek clarification.
Yes.
Fine, thank you. Proponent, please come forward if they so wish.
I think Kevin did excellent presentation. I have nothing to add.
Thank you. Any questions for clarification from public?
Mr. Mayor, we did receive 1 letter. It has been presented to you. I will read it.
Yeah.
Development variance permit DDP 21-006 from Judith Manhattan. While I believe the proposed development at 1091 Main Street is a good thing, I have some serious concerns about parking and traffic. The area around 11th Avenue is densely populated. The volume of traffic in both directions from Main Street and 11th Avenue is already very high. There are certain times of the day that I avoid the left-hand turn from 11th Avenue onto Main Street and drive down Russell Street to 9th Avenue for access to Main Street. I think any reduction in unobstructed sightlines at road intersections would be hazardous to motorists and pedestrians, especially with the proposed parking on 11th Avenue. There is a high volume of pedestrian traffic from the high school, McLean and Red Rock Manors, and other residents. I'm opposed to the reduction of off-street commercial parking stalls to 0. There should be a minimum of 2 required for the occupants of the 2 proposed commercial rental units. Otherwise, they would take up street parking for 8 to 10 hours a day or more. Main Street from 10th Avenue to 12th Avenue is often full of parked vehicles. One other concern I have is the rodent population inhabiting the existing derelict building at 1091 Main Street. Rats have been seen running from the back of the property across Russell Street. I would like to see the developer take care of the rodents before starting to demolish the building. Again, I think this development is a good thing and look forward to it, but I believe the developer is trying to squeeze too much onto the property and should cut back on some things rather than have variances granted, and that I believe will jeopardize the safety of motorists and pedestrians. Thank you, Judith Manhattan. P.S. I think it's a good time to have a proper pedestrian crossing at 11.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, from the public, it's speaking to council about how they feel that the development affects them, not a question and answer period.
Oh, okay, so it's a statement.
Yes.
Before I go to council, anyone from the public like to make their statement, concern? Yes.
Hi, my name's Patty Weston. I live at the very end and off of 11th Avenue, and I share a lot of the point of view of Ms. Manahan's comments. Overall, I am thrilled. I'm thrilled that, you know, something will be built there, that there will be rental accommodation for people, and just to have that wretched eyesore torn down. You know, it is in such prominent space. So overall, I'm glad something is finally happening, and to me, the sooner the better. I am concerned about the sight lines as well, because I'm doing the left to come downtown off of 11th, and, you know, frequently. And frequently there is a logging truck parked, you know, as close as they're allowed to the corner. So I'm more interested in actually the Main Street, Highway 40, parking there. If something can be done about the sight lines, I agree with Jude, that, because the other part is there's a gradual slope down from, you know, the turn there, the few blocks. And so right now, it is very difficult if there's, especially if there's a logging truck, it is not possible to properly see before you pull out to do a left. And at certain times of day, like when the school buses are coming through, it's surprising how long you have to wait to do a left, like considering what a small community we have. So I'm hoping that something can be remedied about that aspect. The other thing, I'm not seeing it here, but when I was reading it at first, I was concerned that there would be a big, because it's a convenience store, whatever that one is, that there would be a big junky sign, which would be one of the first things we see, and we already have one of those, so. But maybe if somebody could just confirm to me that there's not going to be some big flashing neon sign, which is the first thing when people see when they come up Station Hill. So it's not on there, but.
Anything else?
No.
Thank you, Ms. Weston. Any other comments, concerns from public? Okay, hearing none. Councilor Leach?
Is it possible to pull up page 121 of our agenda? Is that, are we able to put that on the screen? so I just wanted to clarify off the 11th Avenue. So we have the stall parking that's facing towards, the two smaller retail units. And so is that darker area, so is the sidewalk extension kind of going into the property and then around the parking and then back, like that there, yeah?
That's correct. The property
Okay.
line is right along the bottom here. Here's the sidewalk as it exists.
Yeah.
And then what they're proposing is to jut it on,
Okay,
bring it in. That's all gonna be covered.
okay,
And we will have to have an easement registered across there in
Okay.
favor of the district.
perfect. And then off the front, off the main street, so it looks like there's paver stone. I don't know if you can clearly see that, where the patio is. Is that including the existing sidewalk, or is that,
This is entirely within the property line. So
within the
then there
property?
is
So
the
there's
sidewalk.
another like there's still a sidewalk off of that, okay.
That's correct.
Perfect. With that clarification, I think the sightlines are actually, more reasonable than they are currently.
The sightlines currently require a 6 meter by 6 meter sight triangle. Currently, the current building is right up to the property line, so it doesn't meet that. So it is actually gonna be set back quite a bit further than it is now,
Okay.
to about 20 feet.
10 to feet, yes.
20 feet, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarification.
Anything else, Councilor Lee? Councilor Hopple?
Through the mayor, I think this is a beautiful plan as well. But I do have an issue with the parking. I think the parking is, I worry that the 6 units will not have a second vehicle or, have guests and will take away. So I would like to see, and I don't know if this is a possibility, but these extra parking stalls out here, I would like to see a, maximum 3-hour parking or maximum 6-hour parking sign, and I don't know how we would monitor that or anything else, but I would just like to see something that says, hey, you can't have a second vehicle here parked 24/7, just to kind of, have an awareness that those are for the actual store and guests and that kind of thing. My second point is that I really like what Ms. Manahan said with her PS statement. Maybe it is a good time to have a proper pedestrian crossing at 11th and Main, that we could, and I don't know what's there right now, but I don't believe anything is there at this point, because when kids do go down here, my kids used to go down to the corner store, cross the street, and go over to the skate park. That was their thing, right? And I think that might be that she's got a good idea here, so I'd like to see that happen too. Otherwise, lovely.
Councilor Weed?
Yes, through the mayor. I think it's a wonderful development, and I too, had a concern about the parking on Main Street, but that is not really a problem of the developer. They're setting back and the logging truck parked there or whatever. I find that when I'm downtown, there is not one side street now that you can make a left-hand turn on without sitting and waiting, because we have the barber shop, we have May Wong's, we have a nice complex coming, which I'm looking forward to seeing. And, I don't know, I could get tarred and feathered for this, but maybe it's time that we, seeing as we've been working with ICBC and Ministry of Transport about crosswalks, maybe it's time that we think of a stoplight somewhere. And I know. I was waiting for it.
I was thinking about it, but I dared not bring it up.
I'll bring it up, I'll be that person, but I'm thinking, because I do actually go around the back way and go, okay, where is nobody parked where I'm gonna be able to hang a left to leave from the hospital or wherever I'm going, the veterinarian, wherever. So it might be time to have that conversation, that we need a stoplight rather than another crosswalk that some people use, other people don't, so,
Yes,
thank you.
Councilor Hop?
Through the mayor, I'm just curious, with the flashing neon sign possibility, nothing speaks to that. When would we learn more about that, and is there anything we can do to prevent
The sign bylaw already does prohibit, like, the flashing.
Oh, well, okay, sorry, so
Signs?
maybe I
Yeah.
shouldn't have said flashing, sorry, but the strong bright neon light being the first thing you see as you come up that
Yeah.
street.
Generally, those lit, and I'm not entirely sure how A&W happened, I don't think that's permitted in the bylaw, although it's probably permitted as part of the development permit, which can exceed the bylaw almost as a variance can. But if it came forward, it would come to staff as a sign permit application, and if it didn't meet the requirements of the sign bylaw, they would either have to apply for variance to that or make it, meet it. As part of issuing any, signs that have been illuminated, we've been making a, condition of the permit that it dims in the evening.
Counselor Weed?
Through the mayor, I'm just wondering, will the rodent problem be addressed? I don't live down there, so I don't know other than from Ms. Manahan's letter about the rodent problem.
Unless the developer is planning on starting a rodent hotel, I would imagine they would have to.
You never know. This is not a guaranteed rugged. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? I just have the one, I like the ideas that were coming out, and particularly crosswalk. We could probably do it 2 in 1. Obviously, it isn't the responsibility of this developer, but it would be the responsibility of us as council in terms of dealing with the Ministry of Transport. And I think a crosswalk has to be down there, but we could do it 2 for her. In other words, the crosswalk in the right place, a pressure plate underneath the, whatever, 11th or whatever, read it, what it is, right beside, so that it stops, it'll turn the light on the crosswalk, and therefore it's not a a sequencing light type of thing. If nobody's using it, traffic just goes through. I think it's something that we as council can have staff, where budget is coming up, our strategic plan, well, we've sort of done that, but I think we should look at pursuing the crosswalk with the flashing sign and a pressure plate, and that would handle traffic getting on Highway 11, and also pedestrian traffic crossing it, which I agree we already need. Any other comments from council? Anything more from you, Mr. Taylor?
Not for me.
I have to read this out completely?
You don't have to.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay, is council okay with that, if I state as written? Okay. Need someone to move number 1 as written, number 2 as written. Counselor Howe, second Counselor Weed. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Will that be finished in the next 3 months?
The development permit and the variance permit expire in 2 years.
We'll move to item 12.2, bylaw enforcement bylaw, amendment bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw 2021-025 is before you today for consideration of adoption. As presented at the November regular council meeting, this amendment is to add clarity to the zoning penalties. Some potential infractions were missed at the beginning of this year when this bylaw was first adopted, which only came to light through the practical implementation of the bylaw and feedback from the bylaw enforcement officer. So staff are recommending that bylaw 2021-025 be adopted.
Okay. Any queries, comments from council? Okay, need someone to move the bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 2021-002, amendment bylaw number 2021-025 be adopted. Counselor Howe, second Counselor Weed. Any further discussion? None, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Item 12.3. Fees and charges bylaw number 2021-003.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In our ongoing efforts to fulfill council's strategic priorities, I put before you the next proposed integration into the fees and charges bylaw. This will be the 3rd amending bylaw to start bringing all of our fees into an omnibus bylaw for clarity. Council's strategic priorities include the direction to review all bylaws containing fees and charges on an annual basis to ensure financial stability for the district and fairness for users prior to annual budget development in 2021 and 2022. As the cemetery fees were only considered through the end of 2021, they seem like the next logical set to review. The proposed fees are planned to be sufficient through 2025, barring any major increase in inflation or public works staffing costs that can't be predicted until it happens. We are recommending for operational efficiency and clarity, a single fee to cover the costs between 2022 and 2025, with a review in 2025, the next 5-year period being 2026 to 2030. While some of the percentage increases sound large on a few of those items, they're generally only amounting to about $25 of increase. With the cost of labor and materials increasing significantly over the last few years, staff believe these estimates are still to be on the conservative side. Should we determine that fees are not in fact covering costs before 2025, we can bring back and update the fee schedule to address any changes that are required. Staff are recommending that bylaw number 2021-029 be introduced and read first, second, and third time.
Any questions, queries from council? No. Someone please move that the fees and charges bylaw number 2021-003, amending bylaw number 3, bylaw number 2021-029 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Hopeful. Further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Finn. Item 12.4, financial plan bylaw.
Thank you, yes, through the mayor. As council's aware, I'm sure, when we first approve and adopt the financial plan at the beginning of the year, we have no idea how the year is actually going to go. So as you're aware, we had a number of amendments to the bylaw come to council throughout the year. This is incorporating them all into one financial plan amendment for the year. And also catches a couple of errors in coding. Things were coded as capital, should have been operational. And on the flip side, we had some grant applications that went in that weren't approved at the time of the original financial plan that were approved after, so just incorporating those in as well.
Okay. Any questions for clarification from council? Good? Okay. Someone please move that the financial plan bylaw number 2021-016, amendment bylaw 2021-029 be introduced and read a first time. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Hopeful. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. And someone to move that the financial plan bylaw number 2021-016, amendment bylaw number 2021-029 be read a second time. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? Having none, call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you. And finally, that someone move that financial plan bylaw number 2021-016, amendment bylaw number 2021-029 be read a third time. Councillor Howe, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried, and thank you. Item 12.5, rezoning application.
Mr. Mayor, I was hoping I was gonna get a longer break than that. The rezoning application at 293 Park Drive from residential 1 to residential multifamily has been withdrawn. The applicant is considering the development potential of the lot and will either reapply for a different proposal or build within the current zoning. As this bylaw is sitting in first reading, we should rescind the reading. Thank you.
Any need for clarification, council? No. Someone move that the first reading of zoning bylaw 2018, number 454, amending bylaw number 2021-023 be repealed. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Howe. Discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Item 12.6, rezoning application.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The district has received a rezoning application at 211 Hillcrest Road for the development of a 3-building, 71-unit seniors care facility. The official community plan has designated this property as institutional, which supports the development of community care facilities in seniors housing. The proposal also includes some independent living units and on-site staff accommodation, both of which are supported in the Lillooet 2040 official community plan. The development of an inclusive, sustainable, and holistic retirement community will offer a comfortable, modern, and safe retirement experience to all individuals, as well as the opportunity to age in place near friends and family in Lillooet. The proposed buildings will include 37 assisted living units over 3 floors, 20 independent units, and 15 staff units. The developer has indicated that a number of on-site services will be provided, including a healthcare team, senior living specialist, an on-site geriatrician, meal and life management support, 24-hour emergency services, physio massage therapy, acupuncture, and rehabilitation, social programs, a salon, spa, fitness studio, and hot tub, laundry services, and transportation services. The developer, being Houston, has described the development of high-quality seniors retirement residence as being for the benefit of everyone. It will attract and employ medical care professionals with a forecasted direct job creation of 15 to 20 employees, including management. Also providing the option to age in place may encourage downsizing, which would open a number of properties back onto the market for future Lillooet residents, or those looking to leave home but stay in the community. As the zoning bylaw does not currently have a zone appropriate for this type of development, we are proposing a comprehensive development zone that will be specific to this development on this site. The permitted principal use in the zone is a community care facility with independent living and staff accommodation as permitted accessory uses. This is to ensure that the facility is always used for the intended purpose of assisted living. Other permitted accessory uses are to provide for the services proposed to be offered on site, including business offices, recreational uses, and personal services. A spread in density to a maximum of 45 units per hectare and minimum of 30 units per hectare should allow for any slight variations of the business plan throughout the process. The proposed permitted maximum height is 16 meters or 3 stories, and for the purpose of this zone, the height will be measured to the highest point of the building rather than to the midpoint of the roof line. Parking is proposed at 1 space for every 4 assisted living units, and 1 space for each independent living unit, and 1 space for each staff dwelling unit. Staff are also recommending that the EV charging station requirement not be imposed on this development. However, as always, the inclusion of environmentally friendly infrastructure will never be discouraged. This project is not within a development permit area and thus has no design constraints. While the developer has kindly supplied these renderings showing a commitment to the process, they will be permitted to make alterations after the fact. Although I have seen no indication that they intend to do that. With the money and pre-planning going into this project, it is clear that the developer wishes to construct a high-quality project. Both the Lillooet 2040 and the 2021 Housing Needs Assessment identified that the growing senior population will require Lillooet to plan for a variety of needs as an aging population retires out of the workforce and begins requiring additional care and services. Goal 3 of the OCP is to improve housing affordability and attainability, with one policy statement being to ensure adequate senior housing and supportive living options as an essential part of how the district plans for an aging population and provides opportunity for residents to age in place. I've included in more detail the exact objectives of the OCP, including citations in the staff report in your agenda package. You will probably have noticed that the property is at the crest of an approximately 60% slope, which I have been particularly persnickety about, ensuring development happens in a way to not affect adjacent properties. However, the developer has come in and they have done their pre-planning around geotechnical concerns. The geotech, being Thurber Engineering, has completed a site analysis, including investigative testing and have made a series of recommendations for building placement and site restoration. The construction of this property will be under the eye of an architect who will manage geotechnical and structural engineers who will oversee every phase of the construction in accordance with the Architects Act and BC Building Code. There will be some minor servicing upgrades required as part of this project, most notably the replacement of the water main in Hillcrest Road, starting at Park Drive and terminating at the subject property. The upgrade will be from a 100mm main to a 200mm main and is required to meet the required 90 liters per second for fire protection. The developers also, on their own initiative, held a public information meeting to gather feedback from the community for council's consideration, and this feedback has been provided by the developer on pages 252 and 253 of your agenda package. As this development is well conceived and the developers have been planning out the logistics of this ambitious proposal for a number of years, in order to come in with a thoughtful and needed development, staff are recommending that bylaw 2021-023 be read first and second time, and that staff be directed to schedule a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any queries, comments from the council? Councilor Hopple.
Through the mayor, I have two questions. The first one is, we're gonna change the zoning, obviously from institutional to community care facility and seniors housing, correct?
The name of the zone will be CD1, Comprehensive Development Zone, Riverview Seniors Housing.
Okay. So my question is, taxes. Because it's gonna have a big impact on our municipal services such as water and sewer, fire department, street maintenance. Do you have any idea the revenue that would generate, like, any ballpark figure?
I have absolutely no idea.
I know everything.
Assume that is the error I try and project, yes.
Okay.
I assume that BC assessment, what is the assessment code for multifamily residential, and is that taxed the same as normal residential?
Yes.
And-
There is also a class code for supportive housing. I'm not sure that this would fall under that code or residential.
It's also whether BC assessment would consider this a commercial venture or not, so it's really gonna depend how BC assessment classifies this as to what rate codes it falls under.
And through the mayor, they can assign different classes to one property. So part of it could be classed commercial, part of it residential.
Right, okay.
There's no telling.
So with this new zoning, okay, alright, okay.
The zoning won't affect the taxes by what it is. BC assessment assesses based on what's there.
Right.
And they will assess it at the highest and best use.
But it will be a revenue generator.
I would imagine they would be paying a fair number of taxes on these three buildings, yes.
Okay.
Councilor Leach.
Just in regards to the water main upgrade, cause it has to go from the property all the way down to Park Drive, just to clarify, that's gonna be at the cost of the developer and not the district?
Yes, it'll be at the cost of the developer. We will put what's called a latecomer agreement on it, which means that if anybody else along that path subdivides, between now and I think it's 15 years now, it's either 10 or 15, then we have to collect money from those developers and pay it back to the developer if that development happens.
Okay. And, yeah. I had another one, but I lost it because I didn't write it down, so can you come back to me?
Give me some time.
Yeah.
Good. Go for it. Councilor Hopple.
Okay, through the mayor, alright, so the 5-meter setback or 15 feet, so I was trying to, like 15 feet is from like Joni to me. Obviously I'm not qualified to deem what is a safe distance, so I go to liability. So if the hillside moves or sloughs away within that 15 feet and something does happen, who is responsible? Who holds that liability?
As the BC Building Code requires that we collect a Schedule A and Schedule B. The Schedule A is from the architect, who's the coordinating registered professional. The Schedule B is gonna be from all of the engineers who are involved on this. And what those schedules do is the engineers taking responsibility for their work. So their stamp is ensuring that they have said that this is safe.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm not sure, did anyone from the development show up? No, the applicant wanted to be here, but is stuck on the other side of the various slides and showing you the passages.
Okay. Counselor Leach?
Yeah, sorry, I remember what I was gonna ask you now, sorry. Will these buildings, cause I'm not super familiar with building code, will they be required to have, a built-in sprinkler system?
I believe that these ones are required to have, these sprinklers, at least for sure the large one.
Okay, and then, I think there is on that street, but I just can't recall, fire hydrant, is there one currently on Hillcrest? And if not, is that gonna be required to be put in, and,
If there's not, yes, there would be. I think they were proposing an on-site fire hydrant, but regardless, as part of their actual submission for a building permit, they will have to ensure that there is a fire hydrant with adequate flow within the appropriate distance as deemed by the fire chief.
okay. And I guess to, it's not especially pertaining to this particular one, but which with the amount of developments coming up and increase in residential units, I guess in our strategic planning, are we going to be looking at our, I know we've announced that we've purchased a lot beside the fire department for planning purposes and future purposes, but, at our strategic planning, are we gonna be having a more in-depth review of the services our fire department, currently gives and where we need to be in the next 10 years with this development going on?
If council wants to request that, I'm sure that the fire chief could bring that forward.
I would like to at least have a conversation at this point, just for planning purposes, especially through our emergency preparedness. I would hate to see that we overlook, that bit with the amount of units coming into play in the next 2 years, so.
I think we can safely say from the slice of the budget pie that the fire chief always manages to get, if he needs more money, he will ask for it.
I don't doubt that.
But the rest of council agrees, it's something that, as Counselor Lee says, that we should have staff, we'll review that, we don't need a resolution for that, we'll bring it, okay.
Okay, I just wanted
Good.
to reassure.
All right.
Thank you.
Counselor Weed?
Through the mayor and possibly through Mr. Taylor to Ms. LaRue. When it comes to the BC assessments, I did tune into their presentation on Zoom, and one of those buildings is staff, and one of those buildings is senior living, and one of those buildings is assisted living, and then there's, going to be like a restaurant down below and this, that, and the other. So to the best of your knowledge, would BC Assessment do like 4 assessments depending on the buildings, or?
Through the mayor, they would do one assessment for a property, however, it could have multiple classes of land and improvements in that one assessment. So it could have residential class, buildings on, I'm just making it up, commercial land, and it can be all various combinations of different classes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other clarification required by council? No, thank you. Someone please move that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454, amending bylaw number 2021-032 be introduced and read a first and second time, and that a public hearing be scheduled, and further that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act. Councillor Hopple, second Councillor Reed. Any further discussion? None. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Taylor, item 12.7.
Last one. Z 21-005 is an application for a site-specific zoning amendment for the property located at 101 Horsebeak Terrace in East Lillooet. Specifically, they were requesting the zoning to allow for a carriage house when not connected to municipal water and sewer systems a requirement the bylaw currently has. The reason for this prohibition is to protect water systems, specifically wells, from infiltration from septic failure. Septic systems are required to be no less than 30 meters or 100 feet away from any well. This includes wells on the subject property as well as on adjacent properties. In consultation with a professional who helped to develop the standard practice manual for septic systems and publications from the Okanagan Basin Water Board, this blanket prohibition may be unnecessary as you get into larger lot sizes where the separation can be maintained. The general best practice is for allowing carriage homes on well and septic is to only permit this on lots at least 1 hectare or 2.47 acres in size, which this property is. The water supply will still need to be confirmed by an engineer, and the existing covenant requiring water treatment will need to be updated. However, there is no other concern with multiple dwellings on a parcel this size once those items have been addressed. Staff have already been planning to propose allowing carriage homes on large lots without services in the next iteration of the bylaw, and also to consider allowing carriage homes on smaller half-acre lots when connected to at least municipal water. This would also address housing needs identified in the housing needs assessment. One other component of the site-specific zoning provisions is to allow the carriage house to be in line with the primary dwelling at a minimum 6-meter setback. Currently, the zoning bylaw requires accessory buildings to be constructed at least 3 meters behind, that's from the front property line, behind the primary building. We see no practical reason for imposing this section on a lot this size. There are some streetscape provisions that may have made it reasonable in smaller lots in town, such as not having the streetscape be fronted with detached garages, but a 2.5-acre property does not run into this issue. The height for residential accessory buildings is also requested to be 4.8 meters to accommodate the design. Again, as this is a large property with no discernible impact on adjacent property sightlines, staff believes that the proposal is reasonable. Staff recommend that bylaw 2021-028 be read a first and second time, and that a public hearing be scheduled. Thank you.
Any queries, clarification required from council? Good. Okay, somebody please move that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw number, dialogue 2018 number 454, amending bylaw 2021-028 be introduced and read a first and second time, and that a public hearing be scheduled, and further that staff give notice of the public hearing in accordance with the requirements of the Local Government Act. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Howe. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Taylor, and thanks to the planning department. It'd be nice to have a similar one show up at every one of our meetings in the future.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Good work. All right, item 13, work in progress. Council had a time to review it. Any questions required, clarification? No. Lot of work, well done. Need someone to move that the work in progress as of December 3rd, 2021 be received for information. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Howe. Further discussion or questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We'll move to item 14.1, Councillor Huffle's notice of motion regarding assessment of current federal and provincial policies and guidelines for forest management and wildfire protection. Councillor Huffle.
Thank you. Okay, so I brought this forward as a notice of motion a while back. And as I reported, I spoke with MLA Jackie Taggart and P. Brad Viss. After that, I also met with Fire Chief Darren Oiki and CAO Jeremy Denneker for their input. So Mr. Viss advised me to use all the information I gathered from those meetings and the message I was trying to send by starting a petition that had a minimum of 25 signatures. So first of all, I'd like to thank George and Karen Vanderwolf and the staff of KC Health for helping me attain those 25+ signatures. So here's what I put on the petition. BC Wildfires. Whereas we are calling for better forest management and wildfire prevention, as well as empowering local people working with licensees, industry and contractors, indigenous communities, ranchers, and boots on the ground workers such as firefighters, forestry workers, and all those that see the day-to-day issues and have the frontline knowledge to provide feedback on the inconsistencies and can help create change. Ontario created an all hazards agency that employs people to manage fire, flood, and slides. We believe that BC needs this too. Create full-time, year-round employment for forest restoration and management for firefighters. The trickle effect of lumber prices and availability, along with the jobs, mill closures, current and future mudslides, damage to critical habitat, the house insurance increases will have an alarming effect on BC's future if we don't change the current forest practice procedures. We need to make a change to protect BC forests and every living thing in it. So therefore, this petition is calling on our provincial and federal governments to provide better forest management and wildfire protection by assessing the current policies and guidelines to enhance those that are working and to reevaluate and change those that are not. So we got lots of signatures on here. I've got copies if you'd all like them. And what I'm asking is, I'd like to make a motion today that Mayor and Council will accept this petition to be mailed to the House of Commons, and that MP Brad Viss may address it there as he holds the 44th seat in the House of Commons. I would also like to add to that motion that Council asks staff to write a letter on behalf of Mayor and Council of Lillooet, BC, that reiterates and supports the points of this petition.
Okay,
Thank you.
any, Councilor Leach?
I would wonder if Councillor Hop will consider bringing that one step further and having the petition CC all of the municipalities within BC, encouraging them to do the same.
Would love it.
Any other, good point, any other comments? No? Questions? Yes, I think it's timely.
Good job.
And, I'll temper my thoughts. I was listening to, provincial wildfire supervisor from Kamloops talking about how fighting fires today was different than it was many years ago because of, climate change and so on, and that's pure, utter hogwash, as far as I'm concerned. The high temperatures, it's so unfortunate what happened to Lytton, obviously, but in 1980 in northwestern Ontario, we had 40-degree temperatures there, and we had to evacuate 3 towns of 5,000 people by Hercules. So these things have happened in the past. We fought fires differently then, we're fighting it differently now, and I think the results of which I really believe that Councillor Hoffel brings out good points, and I'm glad that this council is willing to move a step forward to it. I was thinking originally a royal commission, but you know, that's a decade. You know, we want something that will be good, and I think that's a good point. All the communities, it's gonna be a bit of work for staff, but it's really important, I think, from our point of view. Any other comments from, so.
Great job, Lori.
Okay, Councillor Hoffel will move a motion, on the floor for, us to, not accept, for us to formulate the petition to go to the House of Commons, right? And,
If I may?
and staff to outline a just let me finish. And staff to summarize this in a letter, and it to be, also carbon copy to all the BC communities. Now, let's refine that.
Does your petition have a title on it?
I just put BC wildfires. But I did at the bottom put a reference of YouTube Valley Destroyed, the story of Monty Lake and Paxton Valley, part 1 and 2.
Okay.
Because we had talked about that, and he was.
So then I would propose that Mayor and Council accept the petition titled BC Wildfires and submit it into the record at the December 7th, 2021 regular council meeting. and that council asks staff to write a letter that reiterates and supports the points of this petition and present it to Bradville's MLA presentation at the provincial legislature. And further that the letter and petition be forwarded to all BC municipalities.
It's MP
Yeah.
to the House of Commons.
Right. Sorry, MP to the federal
But
legislature.
do we wanna do Jackie Taggart MLA to our province?
Well, just to say, I did just talk to Mr. Viss, and he said to where to send it, and then he would, like, in his name, to the House of Commons. And also, I spoke to Jackie, and she said that, she was gonna spread it around too, but, I mean, she's well aware of this.
I take it you didn't like my wording then?
It was very eloquent.
But I think Jennifer, or Councilor Leach's idea just to, just forward it to all the rest of the councils is a great idea too. Cause the more he gets, then.
All right. So Councillor Hoffel will move as it was stated by Mr. Taylor, who will second. Councillor Weed, any further discussion? Good points. Thanks, council. Well done. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Councillor Hoffel. Okay. We'll move to report the mayor. On November 4th, a Zoom meeting with Interior Health Mayor's Vaccine Roundtable. On November 10th, I met with realtor developers in Pemberton. On November 11th, I did Lane of Reese for Remembrance Day. And November 18th, I attended Virtual Stories by Eric Stater, sponsored by the library, about our local areas. Pretty amazing, great stuff. Hopefully they continue to do work on that. November 21st, I had interviews with CTV, CBC, and other radio stations for the past week. I'm happy that's over. December 2nd, Zoom meeting with Mayor's Vaccine Roundtable for Interior Health. That's it for me. Councillor Hoffel?
November 1st, I attended the Committee of the Whole BC Hydro Delegation. November 2nd, the council meeting followed by closed. November 4th, the NEDIC meeting. And then I also attended Plaid Friday. Best Plaid Friday I've ever been to. It was absolutely great. Bought a few things, lots of people, lights, music, loved it. Good job. I did attend the Committee of the Whole yesterday with regards to the Lillooet Airport grant funding analysis and prioritization study. Airports, lots of money, but I'm confident that there's lots of money and grants available to communities like ours. And I have heard ideas in the past about possible flight training opportunities, being that we have such mountainous terrain. But in speaking with Ben Crook, sadly, that is not the case due to our population and training in the Lower Mainland. So I was always under the impression that people had talked about doing the flight training here and being in correspondence like with Kamloops and maybe developing that in Lillooet. But yeah, so I guess that's not feasible, and I was kind of saddened to hear that. But there's other good ideas out there, and hopefully they will take off. Anyways, goal to provide services, but I always try and seek the revenue opportunities as well, so hopefully we can find a couple of those. And that's it for me, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Howe?
Okay, November 18th, I attended the Chamber of Commerce meeting, and of course they are taking members, so just a reminder out to any business owners who would like to participate in what the Chamber of Commerce can do for your business. Also, I learned that the facade program, the facade grant, or the facade improvement money is not all yet spent. And so they can't reapply until it is. There's about $10,000 sitting there, so anybody who might be thinking about that. administration, it was brought up that the lights on the welcome sign at the bottom of Station Hill aren't working consistently, so admin's taken it upon themselves to have a look at that. Although there are challenges, getting electricians on that job, so we're waiting on that. And I think that's it for the chamber. November 26th was the EOC emergency planning training. That was incredibly insightful. There was, actually they had a lot of really great suggestions and requests of council in terms of how we can help them strengthen their systems, just by having conversations on our end and requesting further requirements from our upper levels of government. So it seems that Councillor Leach has had some of those conversations with the mayor already, which is fantastic. So I'm looking forward to seeing those move forward. And on December 6th, I was at the committee of the whole for the airport grant funding analysis, which was really interesting actually. 3 main points of attention, of benefit for the community, was the airport ambulance operations, wildfire suppression operations, and the Air Force operations, and looking at how we can what we can do to increase use in those areas. And there was also talk of a little discussion around, what is it called now? Building structures to house the planes and helicopters. So, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on that. Hangars, thank you, hangars. So, also very cool to know. And to end my information to council, I would like to give council respectful notice that I will be organizing a silent protest to be held this Saturday, December 11th at 1 p.m. on the district of Lillooet Town Hall lawn. It will not, to the best of my influence, contain behaviors that could be construed as aggressive or possibly blocking public access to buildings such as the post office. And I will be following public health guidelines. The silent protest will be a protest and a chance to sit in solidarity. And it's being held in response to the announcement made by the New Brunswick Prime Minister and Health Minister that as of December 4th, 2021, any grocery store will have the right to refuse the selling of food to anyone not showing a COVID vaccine passport. So this option to refuse the sale of a vital necessity to a specific segment of the population, I feel is a gross misuse of power. So we have finally reached a point where the public and business owners are being told it is okay to choose what I feel is harm against others. So I'm hoping that we will all choose to react to this as well. So where there was once a large divide around support for the mandates, I'm hoping we can find a common ground here, that we can all agree deep down inside that this open allowance to withhold a vital necessity is morally wrong. That we will all take action against such harm, whether that be attending Saturday's protest or writing to our local, provincial, federal government leaders en masse, or any other non-harmful ways of creating resistance and defending our fellow human beings' rights to access food in their communities. Food retail was deemed essential. Why no longer? So please, take a seat with me, council and Lillooet, on Saturday.
Thank you. Councillor Leach.
Thank you for the respectful heads up, Councillor Hunt. Appreciate that. I don't have complete dates around all of the things, but I did attend the Committee of the Whole Airport Analysis, the Holistic Emergency Management course, both held a lot of key information that I know that all of us will use going forward in making our decisions. also did attend the book reading online, with the library with Eric Stathers, and some really great stories and resources to go a little bit further on their own time. It was awesome. And that was regarding, BC Rail and the PGE Railroad and stories and memoirs of his father that he had published in a book. I don't know, and if this is not the appropriate time, please let me know, but I do have a question regarding an infrastructure area in town. Can I bring it up at this point?
You're welcome to bring it up, but my answer will most likely be we'll need to wait until the Public Works Director.
That's okay, it's a fairly simple one, but just
Well,
to bring
gives
it
us
to
all
attention,
notice.
yeah. So with the rain events that we've had, we do know that Main Street in, between the RCMP office and Rev It Up continually floods from an overflow of the ditch in the culvert there. And I'm just curious, is that culvert that's underneath Park Drive, that's in alignment of Main Street, is that our responsibility or is it Ministry of Highways?
Good point.
Or if
It's
you don't,
one of those two.
okay, so that being fair, okay, and
Good point,
if it
Counselor.
if it is our responsibility, I would like it be brought up on the table at some point that we need to look at that, because it's obviously too small of a culvert or ditching or whatever, because it could severely impact the slope beyond and underneath and infrastructure and buildings, if there's not adequate drainage there. Never mind, I'm pretty sure a few people have damaged their vehicles in that puddle. And if it is not, to, make, the Ministry of Highways aware that we are on it and start poking them
I
for
believe
it.
one of the issues is that around that area is where our storm system terminates.
Mhm.
So Public Works is aware that there is too much water going to that specific area of the town. Hopefully that will be brought up during the asset management project that is currently underway.
Okay.
But it would also be a good thing to bring up at future strategic planning to direct the new Public Works Director to address immediately.
All right, fair enough, thank you.
Good.
That's it.
Thanks, Counselor Lee. Counselor Reed?
Thank you, Counselor Howe, for the heads up. And thank you, Counselor Leach. I'll try to bring that to my next MOTI meeting. You're welcome.
I'll email it to you.
Just keep adding to my list of things to do. November 4th, I attended the NEDIC meeting along with Councillor Hopful, and we had a delegation from Kim North at the Hub and Suzanne Denbeck. It was very well put forward. Thank you for leaving that for me. On the 4th, I also sat in on a webinar by BC Hydro Electrification, Clean Future Provided by Water. They want to be the cleanest in North America at 98% from clean or renewable resources from using water, sun, and wind. And they have a 5-year electrification plan to promote heat pumps, hot water on demand, solar panels, et cetera, et cetera. On the 9th, I won't go into a whole lot of detail. I did sit on the webinar presentation of the Riverview Seniors Community Complex, but our staff has already walked everybody through that. It's all these new subdivisions, and it's just amazing what's going on in Lillooet right now. On the 18th, I attended the Thompson-Nicola Regional Hospital Board, and was advised, as if none of us in Lillooet know, that the medical clinic is now owned by Interior Health. Newsflash. They gave us COVID and immunization updates, talked about the rural clinic operations. They are focusing on ensuring core services in place while recruitment occurs. And their core services are acute care, primary care, Mountain View Lodge, and emergency department here in Lillooet. I did voice my dissatisfaction with what's going on in the rural hospitals and questioned as to if they did have a plan, if they could kindly share it with us at one of these regional hospital board meetings. They went through capital projects and minor equipment updates. On the 24th, I did a Zoom SLRD regular meeting for elections. Jen Ford is still our chair, Vivian Birch Jones is still the vice chair. We had a delegation from Wild Safe BC, and they are changing all the signage on the SLRD lakes as needed. Big news is they're using COVID restart money to give $17,500 to each of 4 food banks, and one is our Friendship Center, which I was really pleased to hear that. Another big announcement, our Area B director, Pilt Funds, is giving another $24,000 to the Lillooet Rec Center. So those are the good news is coming out of SLRD. Also on the 24th, I sat in on a speaker series while Silga was on lunch. While SLRD was on lunch, I sat in on a Silga speaker series because Chief Dan George was the speaker. And I could have listened to that man all day. I hope that they have him at convention in April. He talked a lot about building relationships and the questions to ask ourselves as council, or government representative. Who wants change? Who wants to change? And who wants to lead the change, seeing as we're all stronger together? And that's something that they need to ask themselves and we need to ask ourselves and move forward on that one. The core of any relationship is trust, and to try to be vulnerable and to know who you're talking to. He went into a lot of explanation about elected chiefs and hereditary chiefs and how their thinking is totally different, using pipelines as an example. So I won't get into that, or we could stir up something more. And then he mentioned the myths about bands, how bands are unorganized, how they're not business-minded, how none of them get along, how they're not interested in working with the government. And he said those are all myths, not truths. So, and he said the points that we should be working on, which Councillor Howe will be pleased with, are number 43, number 47, number 57, and number 75, and that's where we should start for reconciliation. On the 26th, I also attended the emergency preparedness workshop at the fire hall. Yeah, we should take a few things to UBCM. I'm thinking we should be writing resolutions as we speak. I did pass, I believe the gentleman's name was Mark. I had a business card, but I passed it on to Silga because I'm hoping that possibly he could be at our convention in April. December 1st, I attended another Silga meeting, and it was discussion on convention in April in Salmon Arm and how it conflicts with the Kofi convention. So they're going to see if they can maybe have Kofi zoomed in to the convention arena type thing. Let's see, where can I go from here? The next speaker series was moved to January 12th because it's with Minister Conroy and Flinroe, and anybody who has any questions can forward them to me by December 13th. December 6th, I also attended the Committee of the Whole regarding the airport, and I think along with, well, probably Councillor Hopful and I were most amazed. I could not believe that gentleman's voice. He sounded like a pilot, did he not? And then we found out that he was like a 20-year-old pilot. But he did have that type of voice that, wow, we're on a flight to somewhere, but we don't know where we're going. But it was a lot of information, and I really think there's a couple of points there that we should pull out and possibly work on. And this afternoon, I sat in on the webinar for Pathways to Action about water sustainability and about securing funding to look after the BC watersheds. And, yeah, their creation of fund in the government's mandate, so we're hoping to engage on something with the BC watersheds, hopefully in January. That's the end of my year, I hope.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. We'll move to item 17.1, CAO report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're knee-deep in budget process already, so we'll be probably bringing something before you fairly early in the new year. Hopefully, we'll hopefully be bringing something forward in the new year.
Well, sometime.
I would be questioning the
I like the
we.
We are starting the process of recruiting for a new director of public works. Again, we are hoping something in the new year. Winter is not an ideal time to try and convince someone to move, and also it's very difficult to get across the province right now. So when we have some candidates, we'll give you an update on that. Believe it or not, the election process for the 2022 general election has already begun, and you will likely see some first election bylaws and chief election officer appointments coming before you probably in January in the new year to get that process underway. And we did operate an emergency operations center during the Duffy Lake Road and Highway 1 slides. We ended up with about 40 to 100 people on that first evening, and most of these people didn't actually qualify for emergency support services under the Provincial Emergency Program Act, and the hotels very quickly filled up. So I would like to, on behalf of the district, express to council how generous the Friendship Center was in opening their doors to anyone who needed lodging. The district supplied cots and kits, but the Friendship Center administered everything and provided food, and certainly made Lillooet look very welcoming on the provincial stage. So from staff, I would like to put out a very heartfelt thank you to the Friendship Center. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We'll go to item 18, new business, 18.1, and we're through the Gold Country Community Society, their request for letter of support for grant application to the 150 Memorial Grant Program, Heritage BC. I'm gonna ask council, are you in agreement that we have staff write a letter of support? Yeah. Do I need a resolution?
That staff prepare a letter for Gold Country Geotour Prequel in support of their grant application for the 150 Memorial Grant Program, Heritage BC.
Right. Who will move, as he said? Councillor O'Keefe, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor, carried, and thank you. Item 19.1, the meeting is now open to questions from the media and public. They're hearing none. I'll move to item 20. Someone please move the December 7th, 2021 regular council meeting be adjourned. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Howe. Call the question, those in favor. Thank you, council, thank you, staff, and thank you all for coming out this evening.